Abusia, a Chief Justice CJ Torkornoo suspended Chief Justice. It is alleged say Mami afechire akwako hu Otumfour say ombomodin say obepa His Excellency John Dramani Mahama chew de amano abusia ensem na babeto dwa this time no ano edin yenko na enkokotie alleged issue a just ababonten say Chief Justice akwako hu Otumfour say tutu say onka na asemi bi enfa emano a asemi to me ababonten a honsem Ghana for asomu a obi a kire na adwen ewo yenko ne ngokotie na ha eda so ye be media jecha busa bomodi say be subscribe there my bobo notification bell so for more podcast updates yentie Chief Justice Torkornoo sama ababeto dwamo ekira Charlotte Osempo you know edi efiri wonumpo yamfa emra kwan so na yedi eyi no na say wo de His Excellency John Dramani Mahama efa emra kwan so a say won pese obete wo ho ase yentie nsem ne mu ankasa nchiro mamra sesia ha eda so ye be media
of the 1992 constitution. Nothing. It has not been able to point to one thing which is a violation of the 1992 constitution. Indeed, all that they have suggested and their supporters have suggested is that President John Dramani Mahama should violate the 1992 constitution. They are encouraging him to violate the 1992 constitution. Last week, something significant happened. One of the politicians in this country, everybody wakes up one night and becomes a politician. And we, the journalists, we give them front page coverage and so on. You understand? And give them huge titles and so on. Especially if they can dress like my brother here. You know. And my brother, today you have dressed well. You have dressed. But this politician actually went all the way to Kumasi, went into Manchia, and sent a petition to the Asantehene, urging the Asantehene to intervene in this matter. And I said, my goodness, he's gone gaga. Read Article 146. Why is this? How does the Asantehene come into this matter? But that is the extent of their desperation. She went and told the Asantehene to stop President Mahama. Stop President Mahama. He's following the constitution. Stop him. He's following the constitution. Stop him. Look, everybody in Ghana, including the president, hold their positions, traditional or otherwise, on the basis of the constitution. Chieftaincy is what it is because it is recognized by the constitution of the Republic of Ghana and so on. So, no chief, big or small, giant or dwarf, can violate the constitution of Ghana or can urge anybody or influence anybody to violate the constitution of Ghana. I'm waiting to hear or to see any provision under Article 146 which has been violated by the president. Then we can begin to talk. But this appeal, false and reckless appeal to history, and so on, it won't wash. Do we want to abide by the 1992 Constitution or not? That's a very simple question. Okay? Now, here you have the suspended Chief Justice actually publicly claiming that the judiciary over which she presided, and listen very carefully, the judiciary over which she presided can be politically influenced. That's a serious statement. She's Chief Justice. Oh, she's only suspended, but she's Chief Justice. What has she seen in her life on the bench which suggests that the judiciary can be politically influenced? And if indeed the judiciary can be politically influenced, is that not the strongest reason for resetting the judiciary? So she makes the argument herself. She's making a very strong argument for resetting the judiciary. You understand? And as for the Ghana Bar Association, I don't know what to say. I have done a quality test of that resolution or statement which came out of their mid-year review. And if you do a quality test, the result is very poor. We are told that there are about 8,000. Initially I said 5,000, but I've been corrected. That there are about 8,000 lawyers in Ghana, members of the Ghana Bar Association, 8,000. Less than 50 of them meet to pass a resolution. That's the quality. And that whole meeting was attended by less than 200 of the 8,000 members of the Ghana Bar Association. By the time they got to passing this resolution, more than half the attendees had left the meeting. That's the quality of the decision which was taken. You understand? So, whatever it is, what I wish is that we follow the Constitution. The letter and express provisions of the Constitution. Let's follow them. Let's make sure that the Chief Justice is treated fairly like any other citizen. She's entitled to counsel. She has counsel. And so on. She must be treated very, very fairly. You know, her rights should not be violated at all. At the end of the day, the Article 146 committee will come up with its verdict, and its verdict indeed cannot be changed by the president. The president is enjoined by the Constitution to implement the verdict of that, you know. So this red herrings, you know, about whether or not the Chief Justice's husband is allowed to hold her hand while she appears before the committee and so on. And those are red herrings. I mean, let's discuss them. They are inconsequential. When Charlotte Osei was appearing before the Article 146 committee, did she go with her husband? What is this? Let us continue following the Constitution. Even if we think that the Constitution is defective, there are ways of amending the Constitution. There are ways of amending. I think that there are many parts of the Constitution which are incongruous and so on. I mean, you cannot have a Constitution which describes Ghana as a secular state, and then in the very preamble, make references to God as the something. I mean, it's incongruous. You understand? But that is the Constitution we have. Fortunately, there's a Constitutional Review Committee, and I'm not saying that that Constitutional Review Committee is going to do magic. In fact, it can end up with recommendations which will make the Constitution a worse document than it is now. I don't know what it's going to come up with. But then, there are opportunities for making the Constitution better. And so, let us follow the Constitution. And at the end of the day, the Article 146 committee chaired by Justice Gabriel Puaman will make his decision known, and all of us will be enjoined that decision. Finish. The point I'd like to prove now is that all the existing political parties in Ghana, one way or the other, have roots in the AFRC PNDC. Some roots may be deeper than others. some of the political parties may have more roots than others, but essentially, all the existing political parties have roots in the AFRC-PNDC era. You see, in 1979, mid-1979, all the way up to the 1980s, one of the strongest advocates of AFRC rule was Professor Albert Ebibuahim, who claimed that the principle of probity and accountability which had been introduced by the AFRC was an essential pursuit, essential principle in the building of a democratic Ghana. Now, many of you will remember Professor Ebibuahim's boom speech in the early 1990s, which propelled him to stardom and which led to him becoming the presidential candidate of the New Patriotic Party at the British Council Hall. Indeed, I was at that lecture. Professor Ebibuahim was at pains to try and separate what he called egregious human rights abuses of the PNDC era from its pursuit of the principle of probity and accountability. So for him, as far as he was concerned, the PNDC was pursuing the principles of probity and accountability, which was admirable. But then the egregious human rights violations had soiled the PNDC's hands and so on. I was at the lecture, and I was quite surprised when this lecture, turned out to be what it was. Eventually, we all got to understand that it was General Torkornoo's response which gave that lecture the vein that it got. They said, we actually praised the PNDC for many things, except for its human rights record, you understand? So, it doesn't end there. As a matter of fact, in 1982, when the PNDC came into being following the coup and so on, the appointments it made were interesting, exceedingly interesting. Another presidential candidate of the New Patriotic Party, John Otumfour, became the first PNDC Secretary for Local Government. The very first PNDC Secretary for Local Government was President J.A. Kufuor. Dr. Obed Asamoah, who played a key role in the PNDC from its inception till its end, came from that stock. Indeed, he had become General Secretary of the measure of all opposition parties, which then became known as the, I think, All People's Party or something, So Dr. Obed Asamoah also came from that stock. Then it is interesting to note that a number of members of the PNDC itself came from the Dankwa Buzia stock. And I make bold to mention Alhaji Mahama Idrisu as ideologically and politically belonging to that stock. Eventually, when the PNDC got transformed into the NDC and so on, one of its very first chairpersons was Alhaji Isifu, who also came from that.